Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Compliance Online webinar, Human Error Reduction Techniques for Flow. Our speaker for today is Jeanette Colazzo. He's an industrial organizational psychologist with 20 years of experience that specializes in engineering psychology and human reliability disciplines that study the interaction between human behavior and productivity.
So in terms of the definition of human error, there are two types of definition, not because there's, that they're different, it's just that they're being applied to different scenarios or circumstances, okay? So I want to discuss two of them. One of them is execution with results different than expected. This means that I was executing, I was doing what I needed to do, but for some reason, some action that I performed resulted in something different than expected. So there was an actual impact, or an actual defect. There is an impact to the batch. There was an actual defect. My tablets were supposed to be, yellow, and for some reason, when we finished and we were doing the inspection, it was a little darker, kind of an orange type of color. So when we went back, we learned that there was a mistake while preparing, the coding formula, whatever, the situation is. Now I need to say, well, yes, the person made a mistake, but why? What happened? What caused that mistake? Because I don't want that to happen again. All right. But in this case, there is an actual defect. Now, there is that we live in an environment that by general rule does not consider human limitations in most of the things that we do. And I'm going to go a little bit through memory lane. So, for example, the world is designed ignoring these limitations. For example, passwords. At the beginning that we started, creating systems in which we needed password, and I don't know if you remember, if the system blocked you, you had to call. It required a lot of, effort from the organization to help you with that weakness. So what happened later was like, you know what, you do that yourself. So because why? Because 30% of people will forget after 1 week and 65% after 3 months. So basically your whole organization is working towards fixing the situation because that limitation was not factored in. Has been happening is that this has been translated, this idea has been translated to the organization. And most of the times, again, we classify human performance deviation as a human error. So this comes from that paradigm of the bad apple theory, where complex systems will be fine were it not for the erratic behavior of some unreliable people or bad apple in it. So Pedro, what's happening, dude? Yeah, right. So that's part of what we are doing. We look for the person. We look for the, and I'm sorry, I use Pedro always, but not because of anything in particular. Humans are the dominant contributor to the majority of failures. So it says, if the process is perfect, we validated it. It's just the people that are not paying attention. They're not taking this seriously. They're reckless and so on. Okay, this is part of the old paradigm. The person, human error is the main reason of accidents or incidents. And in order to explain failure, you must find employees' inaccurate assessments, wrong decisions, or bad judgments. As opposed to the new version, which is the one that we're going to start from today on, is the fact that, yes, human error happens, but it is a symptom of trouble deeper inside a system. Something happened and allowed that error to travel all the way to manifesting. So my systems are not that robust if that happens. It's basically, getting to the point of, remember, in what we want to do with human error is try to prevent, but if we can't prevent, what we want to be able is to detect before it becomes an issue. So I want to know where it was that it happened to see if I can prevent it. And if not, I want to know where is it that I can detect it as soon as possible so it doesn't become a problem. And instead of trying to blame people's, inaccurate assessments, wrong decisions, or bad judgments, hindsight is 20/20. So what you want to try to understand is put yourself in that position and find how employees' assessments and actions made sense at the time, given the circumstances that surround them. Put together. So what are the types of errors that we want to address in our quest for reduction? Well, there are different types of errors. There are errors that are intentional, there are errors that are unintentional, errors of omission, and errors of commission, okay? Now, people don't wake up in the morning saying, yay, today I am going to intentionally make a mistake to get in trouble. No, that's not what intentional means. That would be sabotage. And sabotage, that's where you don't even, if you demonstrate that there is a sabotage, that's not even your problem anymore. It's human resources, that's unacceptable, and bye-bye. That's not what we're talking about. These types of error can be related to confusion, memory, and bad decision. And like I told you, that's why we need to consider human limitations. And these are human limitations. Again, multitasking for memory, hurry, stress, slips, attention. I need to know what needs my attention. So I need to make sure that I design for that. Calibration and supervision. So I talked to you, when I was talking about visual detection, data will tell you that probably you can maintain certain focus for 2.5 hours. But in reality, when we're talking about the level of focus that we need for visual detection in our environment is 45 minutes. I'm going to even change this, not to confuse people. But in terms of, that's why, movies and so on can go, to certain extent. But we're not talking about the same level of focus. Okay, I just don't want you. I don't want you to confuse. What is supervision? Well, supervision is the function of watching, guarding, overseeing. In those functions, you have to do, to do administration, direction, government, management, superintendent. So if you're not doing this, then you're not doing your job. And what we also learned while I was working in the industry, and I'm not saying this is your case, but we saw it a lot of the times, is that supervisors were doing the manager's job. The manager was doing the director's job. The director was doing the general manager's job. And general management was basically trying to please corporate. And that's where sometimes we get a little bit deviated from our job. So we have to come back and say, you know what, my job is here. I have to be here. And yes, I would go to meetings. Of course, that's part of my job and all of that. But I have to spend most of my time on the floor. And that's one of the things that we notice. And in assessments that we have done, we have preparation. This I'm going to give you in the material so you have it as a checklist, okay? You want to do a job plan. You want to do a walkthrough for the job and identify, the equipment that we have available, things that could go wrong, identify potential interruptions or special circumstances before work begins, appropriate employee selection and assignment for the task, okay? This includes scheduling, and instructions that need to be complete, clear, and confirmed, okay? So this is what we do in preparation. We want to try to be 2 steps ahead, so when we get to that, pre-job brief or that meeting that we do before we start, then we have all this information. Supervision during work, like I told you, present supervision skills, correcting proper performance as soon as possible. This is the importance of doing the walkthroughs. When you're doing a walkthrough and all of a sudden you see that somebody is doing something from memory when they shouldn't, then you want to get as soon as possible, right then and there, because the closer to the behavior, the most effective the behavior change is going to happen. I cannot say I saw it and then next month I'm going to say somebody last month was working without their procedure. No, that's not going to have an impact. It's, if anything, it's going to make everybody, but then tell that somebody, so we want to make sure that we have that we feel comfortable to say, remember, you have to use your procedure. And if they say it's just that I can't, you want to know why. Last but not least, I want to talk about motivation very quickly. What is going to motivate people to make things the way you want them to do? Well, motivation is directly related to outcome, okay? So basically what we want to do is understand that motivation comes from a trigger, but then sustainability, it's related to outcomes. Okay, so how is it that people acquire habits? How is it that we change this collective behavior? Well, there is a trigger that you add to outcome, becomes a habit. So triggers initiate action, outcomes sustain action, and then you get the natural behaviors. Okay, so triggers initiate, outcomes controls, and actions become habits. So when you want to change the habit of, people are not wearing their hats or their shoe covers or whatever, then this is part of what you want to work with.